I'm Lisa Rose, and this is This Animal Life. I put makeup on and I'm wearing my fancy New York glasses, and I put a shirt on like I imagine actresses wear in Hollywood. All for you.
Oh, well, thank you. And how does this mic sound? Does it sound good right there, do you think? What do you think? Am I too loud?
Actually, it's kind of sexy, Dawn.
You're fun. I have a very scratchy voice, so.
I have with me today Dawn Wolfe. She has worked as an animal talent agent and wrangler for almost 30 years. And she runs her own talent agency, Positively Famous. It's a national animal modeling and talent management firm. And she covers Los Angeles, Denver, Houston, Chicago, Miami, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, everywhere in between, even Florida. She's done projects for Lego, BarkBox, DC Lottery, Birkenstock, or is it Birkenstock? Birkenstock.
Birkenstock, I think. I don't wear their shoes, so.
You
shouldn't say that.
Also PETCO, I think I pronounced that correctly. And you worked on Animal Planet, right? TV shows Dogs 101, Cats 101, Hamsters 101, right? Pets 101.
Pets 101, yeah.
All that.
All that.
Thank you so much for being here with us, Dawn.
Yeah, this will be fun. I'm always up for a good podcast talk. So.
We're going to have a good time. When I was talking to you about the podcast and saying that I wanted to focus on animal stories, and you told me that for you it was Benji. But when I was reading about you, because I Googled you, I saw it all started when you were 12 and you got a border collie.
Yes. Well, I would say it even started a little bit before then, because I got my first dog when I was 3. And
Wow.
Tuffy looked like the dog Toto, right? And so as I got to be, 7 years old, I started teaching him some tricks. And he was pretty good, but he was a peekapoo. So I have this cute little dog, Tuffy, and then I see Benji, and I was just blown away by the whole movie. And so then I really focused on not just tricks for my dog, but actually more movie type behaviors with Tuffy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I was a weird kid.
No. Well, yeah, that could be. But that sounds a lot like me. I wasn't allowed to have a dog till I was 11. But yeah, I don't know what it was, like from the age of 3. As soon as I knew people could have a dog, I wanted one in the worst way, and I wanted to interact with them. I would have done the same thing. And when I finally did get a dog, I did start training almost immediately and did tricks too when I was 11, just like you, and watched every TV show that had a dog in it and every movie that came by. So, but then you got a border collie.
Yeah, so I was at the park because at Washington Park in Denver, and I used to help take care and feed the ducks and take care of the pigeons because they would get a fishing line on them. So I was, I was always taking care of critters. And there were these people, and they had puppies in a cardboard box, and they were giving them away. And so I told them to show up when my mom got home from work, and in this alleyway right by our house, and they pulled into the alley, and then my mom got home, and I was like, mom, I got to show you, come here. And I brought her out I didn't tell her what was going on. I was like, I came out and I showed her these puppies in a box, and I was begged her. I said, please, you need a dog because you don't have a dog. Take one of these puppies. And she said, okay. So it was a border collie mix. And my mom named her Shelby, but of course my mom worked all the time, so it really became my dog. And
which you knew it would. May I just say here that it sounds like that was your first act as an agent.
Yes, I was looking for talent.
Yeah, so, and you made a deal happen.
I made it happen, and so my little dog Tuffy was very, very smart, and but he was nowhere smart as what I found out Shelby was. And Shelby was just, I mean, obviously I had some experience in training and teaching, but when you have a dog that combined with your skills as a trainer, you have a dog with a very high intelligence and a high aptitude for learning and a very biddable dog, a dog that with a really good work ethic. It's just really incredible how that relationship can grow and what you're able to do with that animal. So yeah, Shelby, she became, I did a lot of circus tricks with her. So if you met me at the park, so, let's just fast forward, I'm 12. So a year later, I'm at the park. If you ran into me, I would have a cockatiel on one shoulder, my dove on the other shoulder, and then I would have Shelby jumping, through my arms and rebounding off me and all these frisbee tricks and circus tricks. And then I would clap my hands and hold my arm up, and my pigeon would land on my hand, who was circling, because I pretended my pigeons were falcons, because I always
Yes.
wanted a falcon. So, yeah.
Wow. I would have been absolutely enchanted with you. I mean, you were who I wanted to be. If only my parents would have let me.
Well, that's very sweet of you. A lot of the other children, people my age, they were all into chasing boys and school and all those kind of things. Everything that did not really interest me that much. So,
Now that you say that, um, I could see how it would be off-putting to other children. Somebody like me, I would want to know you. I would make a beeline for you and have no interest in any of the other kids.
and I was good at making noises too, like animals, like growling
Oh,
and
yes.
hot calls and all that. So kids were just like
Hot calls. No,
like
I mean,
hawk. Yeah,
oh, hawk.
yeah, like a hawk.
Okay, yeah. So you were a little weird.
That was very strange. Yeah, but it just, it eventually gave me the career that I have now. So I'm very
Yes,
thankful.
I wanted to be Pippi Longstocking or Jane Goodall.
Oh God, I love Jane Goodall. If I could pretty much meet anybody, I would love to meet her and give her a hug and tell her thank
I
you for
did meet
everything that
Jane
she's ever
Goodall.
done. Wow.
She came to Penn State when I was a graduate student there. She gave a talk, and she was signing books, and I got to go up and get a couple books signed and chat with her a second. That's all. But
Wow.
yeah, and she's still out there touring. I guess she's Zooming now, but I think she's being interviewed for the New Yorker Festival.
Well, I'd love to meet her, because the only person I've ever met that was involved with animals on that type of a level, in a sense, was
Mhm.
Dr. Irene Pepperberg.
You met Irene Pepperberg?
I did. I even have a photo with her. I was so excited. You
Oh,
know, yeah, I'd
yes.
loved Alex. I mean, that was just fascinating what she did with him. And there was a bird store by my house, and they were having, one of their big events, and she was going to be there. And I just was so excited to meet her.
Dawn.
She was like one of my
Yes.
heroes. And I was like, and she
Me
thought
too.
she thought it was like, probably a little weird. I'm like, you're one of my heroes. Oh
No.
my God. And so now, so what's kind of cool is that my brother, Justice, is marrying a lady named Catherine. They're engaged, and Catherine used to work with Dr. Irene Pepperberg. Is that crazy?
That's crazy.
Yes.
Wow. Now, when that book came out, when that hit the news about Alex, I grabbed that book immediately and read it cover to cover, and everything I could find about Irene Pepperberg. If she's on a podcast, or there's a podcast about her, I listen to it. I'm such a fangirl. And I grew up with African gray parrots, because I grew up in, part of my childhood was in West Africa, and we got African grays and cockatoos. And so they were like siblings in my house. And we had no idea. It's sad. We had no idea how smart they are and how social they really are.
Yeah, they're very cool birds. And
Yeah. So you had a pigeon or a dove, and you trained it?
yes, I used to go and catch baby pigeons. I would take them out of their nest when they were, just a few weeks old. And then I would finish raising them as their mother.
Wow, that's dark.
Well, because here, all right, here's the thing. So you can't just keep pigeons for pets, because here's what
Right.
happens is as they get older, there was a flock that was, you could literally see from my house, maybe 100, 200 feet away, this big apartment building. And so my pigeons, who I loved, would eventually start going and hanging out with those pigeons. And
Yeah.
then eventually my pigeon wouldn't come home anymore.
Yeah.
So
It would ghost you.
yeah, it was very sad because I'd see
It
it
is
up
sad.
there and I'd yell for it and call for it, and it was like, no, we're done.
No, and they're telling all the other pigeons, I was taken from the nest. I was raised by this giant.
Well,
Wow, the parrots that we had from West Africa were also taken from their nests and sold as pets. That's just how it was done
yeah, back in the
back in
day,
the
it
day.
wasn't a lot of captive. It definitely was those types of birds. So my mom couldn't afford to buy me a Greater Hill Mina bird, which I really, really wanted. So we went to Cinderella City, the mall once. I probably was, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13 at that point. And there was a parrot that was flying around the pet store and they could not catch it. And the manager was very frustrated by this. So he said, if you can catch it, you can have it. So I literally went down to the next store in the mall, to another pet store. And I said, if you can go catch that parrot, I will buy the cage from you. So they went and caught the parrot. I bought the cage from him and I came home with this. It was a Nande conure. I don't know if you know what Nande.
I know what conures
Yeah,
are.
right.
Yeah.
The Nande conure. And yeah, his name is Bandito, and it was my first experience with parrots.
May I just point out here that again, you showed what a natural wheeler dealer you are.
Yes, this is true. Well, it's just the thing. When I want something, I am very unstoppable, and I have to have it. So I had to have that bird. And
Yeah, but you negotiated with adults.
yeah,
And you solved the problem. You figured out what do they want? Like the store next door, they want somebody to buy a cage from them. So
yes,
you figured out what they want. Yeah.
Most of the people that I corresponded with as a child were adults. I didn't have many child friends, so I guess that's where maybe I got those skills from. That I wasn't afraid to ask adults and tell adults what I want, and make things happen. So yeah, Bandito was a fun little bird, and then I got into raising cockatiels and ringneck doves. And cockatiels are another, like if anybody ever says to me, hey, I really want to get a parrot, I always recommend a cockatiel for a very first pet.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, because cockatiels are really, they're fun, that like they're playful. You can teach them to whistle and a little bit of talk, but they like to sit on your shoulder. And I don't get me wrong, I love budgies, little parakeets.
Yes.
But I think that the cockatiel's a little more interactive.
So it's a good starter bird.
A good starter parrot. If you really want to start with just have a bird, I do love budgies.
Anyway, what I know you as is an agent. How did you get started? I can see the groundwork was there, the passion for animals and animal training, and the kind of matchmaking, deal making. But did you go to college to learn to be an agent? How did you go from being that weird little girl with a pigeon on her shoulder to being the agent that you are?
Well, I think it was just kind of a natural thing for me to do, in the sense that I went to school to be a professional dog trainer when I was about 21.
Did you? Okay.
Yes, I had a wolf, and I had a wolf dog, and I went to a meeting of all these other people that had wolf dogs for pets in South Jersey.
Okay.
And there was a dog trainer there, and he was telling these people, you need to train your wolves, not just build a big pen in your backyard and keep them like livestock, that they could be trained. And so I talked to him a little bit and I said, oh, dog train. I said, that would be a really good fit for me. I just didn't know that you could make money at it because I remember my mother taking our dogs when I was a child down to a group class for $25 for 6 weeks. And, I can't support two little children on that. And this dog trainer, his name was Major Fred Fink, he said, no, you can actually make a really good living doing this. But he said, blondes are idiots, but you can follow me around for a couple of months and, we'll see if maybe I'll take you on as an apprentice. Yes, he was very chauvinistic.
Listen, as I was studying Benji and Benji's career, the chauvinism was quite apparent. It's a thread in the story. So I'm really glad you brought that up because I suspected it's something you've had to face.
Yes, well, so I ended up following him around for a couple of months. And then he said, okay, you are too smart. You must be a bottle blonde, but I will take you on as an apprentice. So
wow.
I moved a few blocks away from him and then I apprenticed under him. And we took on, obsessive compulsive disorder, aggression, kind of the worst case scenario dogs. I wasn't that interested in competition obedience and helping people with those types of goals. And so after that, he had me move to South Jersey to be his trainer down that way. And, I had Athena, my wolf at the time. So my wolf started getting, I guess, inquiries about her to come in and there's a wildlife gallery nearby.
Okay.
And they wanted her to come and stand out front when a very famous artist, John Van Zyl, was coming to town because he was going to be promoting his Alaska Ethos series, which was a painting of a big black wolf. And so Athena and I went and did that and we had a lot of fun. Oh, and I forgot, when I actually lived in Alaska before I moved to New Jersey, there was a radio station called K-Wolf radio station. It was the main kind of rock and roll station in town. And I reached out to them and said, hey, I have a wolf if you ever want to do any promotions. And so they ended up making her their mascot.
Is that where you got your wolf, was when you were in Alaska?
Yes, I bought her from Philadelphia and shipped her to Alaska. Yes.
That's crazy. Why did you get a wolf?
Well, let's just say I read a lot of Jack London stories.
Me too.
And I always wanted a wolf. And so I ended up getting a wolf dog when I was in Alaska. And he only had a little bit of wolf in him. But I found out about this organization called United States American Wolf Dog Association, and they had a newsletter. And so the newsletter would show up 4 times a year. And in one of the next newsletters I got was a big black wolf named Howling Bear. And he was from the New Jersey area and they were using him for stud service. And he had just won Best in Show. So these wolf people had dog shows like dog show people do.
Okay.
But it was more like going camping with your wolf. So anyways, I called the guy and I said, hey, have you bred him yet? And he did, to a bitch and filly. And so then I got a cub from her.
Okay. And you were in the New Jersey area at the time?
No, I was in Fairbanks, Alaska at the time. So I shipped her up at 6 weeks and she looked a lot older. So they didn't question it at the airlines. Yeah, I left my husband, took my 2 kids and my wolf and came to the States in New Jersey. That's when I met the dog trainer. That's when I ended up going to school. And I used Athena for some promotions. But I would say, he really helped lay the groundwork for me to be a trainer, but I always loved trick dog training, was one of my passions. And you don't really make any money training people's pets to do tricks. You save them from going to the animal shelter or being put to sleep. Yes. And so doing trick training kind of was my happy place to kind of, I guess, even out some of the sad and hard decisions that had to be made in working with clients. So, as the years progressed, I had to go back to Alaska. And when I got back, I actually got a little Jack Russell that I went to the Jack Russell Terrier Club Association. And they were having, their trials. And I went there specifically looking for a Jack Russell that would look like a movie dog.
was this because of Wishbone, or was this before Wishbone?
No, it was maybe around the time of Wishbone, but I loved Jack Russells, and whenever I saw a Jack Russell, I was just like, oh my God, that is the cutest thing in the world.
Yes.
And I had trained some, so I worked with Jack Russell Rescue, and so I went to the trials, and this lady had one who was 6 months old, and she also had her brother who was a little bit of a shorter one, but she had this beautiful all white one with just one brown spot on her forehead. So I put her on a leash and I walked her around the club, around the event. And I would say to people, does this look like a movie dog to you? And everybody was like, oh my God, that dog is so cute. I could totally see that dog doing a movie. So anyways, I went back and told the lady, yes, I would take her. And so then Hope started getting hired to do different commercials and different print shoots and whatnot. And she was just an amazing little trick dog. And then I ended up, because I was doing that business some for fun, the lady that I was working with told me, well, if you really want to be able to do a big movie or a big commercial, you really have to have two of them, because they won't hire you if you don't have a double. So,
wow, good tip.
And it just kind of came at a time in my life. I hadn't planned to get another dog after I got Miss Hope, but unfortunately, one hard part of my life was that I got Hope in June at that show, and in November, my oldest son Cody was killed in a car accident. And so, with the holidays coming around, here comes Thanksgiving and here comes Christmas, and it was horrible, as you can imagine.
I can't.
Well, a year later, here come the holidays again, and again they're going to be horrible. So my youngest son Carrick was 14 when Cody was killed. So a year later, Carrick's 15, and I just felt like he needed a dog to love, would help him, and getting through Christmas again would help. So we went and got Nikki, who was a little rough coat Jack Russell, completely all white, and she came into our lives, and she was just so beautiful and so wonderful, and she really helped us get through that holiday season. And she looked just like Hope if I shaved her and put a spot on her head. So she yes, I had to shave her. She got her very first job at 6 months. Her and Hope had to do the Philadelphia lottery commercial, and so that was their first gig. And then Nikki got her very first movie at the age of a year. She was in a movie? She was in a movie with Elizabeth Shue called Firstborn. And she was just that dog. I can't even tell you, you get dogs and they're all special in their own way. And Miss Hope was a great trick dog. Nikki was a great trick dog. But the way that you are able to speak to your dogs, with Hope, I had to be a lot more commanding. Hope, sit, fetch, do this. Where Nikki, I could more casually talk to her like, hey, Bonita, why don't you go over on the chair, and I want you to lay down, and I want you to put your head down. Mm-hmm. So more conversation.
She could pick the cues Nikki was out of amazing. The stream of syllables more naturally. Yeah. Yes.
Well, she was just an incredible actress. She really was amazing. So, and she was very much like Benji, is who she reminded me of, because Benji had that ability to, with his eyes, convey a lot of emotion, and he was just. He will. I mean, we can talk about him now and come back, because in part it's great to review his life. He's so worth it. But also some of our listeners might not know much about him, or might not know about him at all. So, well, that's just a tragedy, because everybody should know about Benji. Everybody should be like required movie watching, especially if you have kids or grandkids. You must show them Benji. It's a timeless. Absolutely. And if you yourself are just
natural born dog crazy person, or if one of your children or a child is a natural born dog crazy person. I had one of my early episodes of this podcast was, is there a gene for dog people? It's one of the most popular episodes. And I looked at whether or not certain humans are born with a gene that creates a natural affinity. Maybe not for dogs necessarily, as in your case, because I think certain people have a natural affinity for interacting with and communicating with other animals, and dogs just happen to be convenient and fabulous. Anyway, yeah, these books that we've mentioned, the Jack London books, are great gifts for dog crazy people if they haven't read them already, or if they're very young. The Benji movies. Also, there was a book for children. I don't know if it's still out there. It was called Sasha, My Friend. It was about a girl who was taken, I think, to Alaska. Her mother died and her father had to go to Alaska to work, and they lived out in the middle of nowhere in a trailer. And she ends up befriending a white wolf named Sasha. It was one of my, this is not ringing a bell for you, huh? I would have thought you would have known that book too. I'll put it in the show notes.
No. Okay. Have you ever heard of the book called
Algonquin?
Yeah, it was very cool. That was another
okay,
one.
I will find that
like kids
and
books.
Put that.
And Where the Red Fern Grows. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh my gosh.
I begged my mother. I begged my mother for those dogs. I was like, please, because I wanted to do coon hunting. Not that I could kill them, but I wanted to do trailing. Yes. And that was one of my favorites.
Now we're going to have to put together a library, Dawn, of books and films.
Right?
Yes. All right. Let's talk about Benji. So I did some homework so that I would be ready to tell you about Benji. He was a mixed breed. He was Cocker Spaniel, Schnauzer, and Poodle. And this guy, Frank Inn, I did not know that Frank Inn is behind most of the animals who were acting in TV shows and movies of a certain time period. Like I was born in the early 60s. And when we came back to the States, I guess it was mid 70s, and there would be these shows in syndication like Petticoat Junction or Beverly Hillbillies, and then there would be an after school special or a movie on Saturday afternoon, Lassie Come Home or something. And I didn't know that a lot of the animals that I was seeing in these shows were mostly trained by this one person named Frank Inn and his woefully uncredited wife. So Frank would, when he was looking for, I should call him Inn, he would go to the shelter when he needed a new dog. So he went to a shelter. It was the Burbank Animal Shelter. It was 1960. And apparently this dog, who he came to be called Higgins, was born on December 12th in 1957 and ended up in the shelter. And they were going to put him down. And the shelter manager really didn't want to. But in went and saw potential in the dog. And the dog was saved and the manager didn't have to kill the dog. So he took the dog, and he would have a number of dogs in his house. He believed that the dog should live with you if you're training it. He believed you had a better working relationship if the animal lived in your house with you. So he had this huge menagerie, because he also trained ravens and I don't know what all. Benji was, most people know him as Benji, but his real name was Higgins. So Higgins was living in this menagerie, being trained, right? And Frank Inn was working on a set where his raven had a gig, had to be in an elevator, I guess. And it was a scene in the Beverly Hillbillies where Ellie Mae bangs a pot and says, "Soup's on." And it's a sight gag, and 40 dogs, which they had all gone and picked up at the shelter and trucked over and trained. And if you want to talk about how they trained that, I'm ready to tell you how they trained this stunt. But 40 dogs upon the cue, "Soup's on," or at least that's how it looks in the video. Ellie Mae bangs the pot, and the 40 dogs come running in like a stampede, and Granny is outside, and Granny falls down, and the dogs run right over her back, like all 40 of them, trample her and leave paw prints all over her dress.
I remember that scene.
That's so cool.
Of
How
course.
do you, here, it's a quiz, a pop quiz. How do you think they trained 40 dogs to run over Granny?
Well, I would say if I were going to train that, I probably would just make a fake dummy
Mhm.
person and have the dogs do it. And then I would never let Granny do it. I would have a stunt double for sure. So that's how I would train that.
Yeah, that's how they did it. They had a dummy that they put in Granny's dress and they trained the dogs to run over it. And then they had a stunt double put Granny's dress on. It was a man and lie there while the dogs run over him. And then they actually had the actress herself lie there in the dress and the dogs ran over her. Anyway, there was this guy from the Raven in the Elevator who was I don't know what his job was, and I tried to find him. They said his name and I could not find him, so I don't know what his deal was, who he was, or why he had suction here. But he saw this and he thought it was the funniest thing he ever saw, and he asked Frank in, do you have another dog, because I think I want to add a dog to the elevator with the Raven. So do you have a dog? And then Franken's like, well, you just saw 40 of them, right? Pick one. And he said, no, I don't want any of those dogs because they've already been filmed. I want a fresh face. So he wanted a completely new dog. So Frank went back to his house and he had 6 dogs, or he brought 6 from his house. I think he had a lot more, but there were 6 dogs that had never been to the studio, never had a gig before. And he brought them and showed them off, and the man picked Higgins. And from there, he went to work on Petticoat Junction. And he was the nameless dog of Petticoat Junction. I think he starts in season 2. There's an episode called, I think it's called Betty Joe's New Dog, which is actually available on YouTube. You can watch it. So I'll put a link to that episode. It is Higgins' first TV gig. And he was in 149 episodes over 7 years, and he is uncredited. But after the 7 years in, retired him. All right. So the dog worked so well that he just, after he retired him, he decided to charge a great sum of money if anybody wanted him for anything. And he did Scholl foot pads commercials. So they wanted a dog who brings a man slippers and sits up in a bag holding the slippers, right? And then when the man takes his shoe off, see if you remember this. And when the man takes his shoe off, the dog keels over backwards.
I do not remember that
Well,
commercial.
I as I read about it, I felt like I almost did. I'll have to see if I can find it somewhere, and I'll put that in the show notes too, so we can watch that commercial, because that commercial won prizes and it made Frank, in if he wasn't rich already, that made him fabulous amounts of money. That's a quote from an interview with him, fabulous amounts of money. So after that, he said, I plumb retired him. Like, that's it. This dog, who at that point, if he did Petticoat Junction for 7 years and he was already 3 and give or take a little training time in there, he might have been over 10 at this point. No, he was 14. I remember that. Yes.
Yeah. He was older, 12, 14. He was getting up there.
So Joe Camp wrote the Benji story. He had seen the Disney film Lady and the Tramp, and he had a Yorkie himself. So he was inspired by Tramp. So he wanted this scrappy, whiskery dog, to star in a movie. So he wrote the Benji movie, and he looked at like 300 dogs. But then he approached Frank in, and he liked about 20 of the dogs. He had narrowed it down, and he was at Frank Inn's place, and he saw Benji lying. This is the story. Is it apocryphal? He was lying under a tree in the shade in the front yard, and he said, "What can that dog do?" And Franken said, "You can't have that dog. That dog's retired. It's an old dog. It's a 14-year-old dog." And he said, "Well, just show me what he can do, because he looks exactly like the dog I just wrote about." So they ran him through some paces. He had to like walk over, I think it's the opening sequence of the movie. He's on a rooftop, and he goes from peak to peak and then pops out and looks at the camera, kind of thing. The first thing he demonstrated was running over a roof like that. So Franken picked him up and put him on the roof. He said, by the nape of the neck. I know. and put him up on this roof, right? And he did that, and he says, oh, okay, what, that's great. What else does he have? You know, and he did all the things. They spent like 2 hours showing off all of his training. So Camp said, I want that dog. That dog can do everything. I want him. And Franken said, no, but he's too old. And Camp didn't care. And I guess they had to negotiate. Because at this point, Frank he said he was starting to break down too, you know, so he wanted to retire too. But he read the script and he thought, what a great last picture for Higgins and me to make. And there wasn't much of a budget, so he was getting grumpy about that, but he agreed to $9,500 for 7 weeks. Okay. Yeah, wow. He says that was practically nothing. I thought $9,500. I mean, what is that in today's money?
A couple of weekends.
Oh, wow.
With a really trained dog.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, when a dog has to do numerous things, right? Like numerous things, they need to be paid for that. It's not just sit, stay. You know, there's some specialty tricks. So, you know, in order to compensate trainers for taking the time to train those.
Yeah, it was okay. I'm glad you said that, because we should start breaking some of this down. It was 7 weeks for $9,500, and that was, gosh, what year was that? We don't know. He was born in
the 70s,
57, and he was 14 at this time. So help me, that's math. 1971. I'm going to go with that. Let's just say that. Don't get out your calculator and check my math. So yeah, he was grumbling about that. But when you think about it, okay, it was 7 weeks. That seems like a lot of money for me even now for 7 weeks of work, because I'm, you know, a professor and a school teacher. And so
well, he probably acted as his own agent.
Oh, okay.
Too. So there was no middleman. So
you're right.
He booked his own job.
It sounds like that, because he had asked for a percentage, and Joe Camp said, I don't have enough money to give you a percentage. I guess it would have been upfront or something. He didn't have enough money. So they had negotiated for back and forth for some time before they got the 7 week deal. And of course, the film was not shot in 7 weeks. They had to renegotiate later on. But at this time, remember, he was lying under a tree. He was 14. He hadn't been working much. He did not have the strength and stamina to do this film. So Frank spent 3 months before the shoot was supposed to begin, training Higgins not to do the behaviors which he already had. But I'm sure he did proof some of the ones that he knew were going to be in the script, of course. But he had to do a rigorous exercise regimen, one that Frank himself couldn't do. So Frank rode a motorcycle back and forth and gave Higgins, who was Benji, treats for jogging alongside the motorcycle. And every day he jogged, I don't know how far, and he had to climb a ladder over and over and over again every day for 3 months. And he had to jump off the ladder into a swimming pool and swim every day, a 14-year-old dog, for 3 months, so that by the time they began filming, he had the strength to do all the things. So they made the movie. Said that he was the smartest dog he had ever worked with. And he said just what you said earlier, that Higgins had the uncanny ability to express emotion. So we should talk about that. But I'm going to wrap up here. Higgins, in 1967, he won the Patsy Award. That's the Performing Animal Television Star of the Year Award. He was featured on the cover of TV Guide. He became the star of Benji. The face critics are saying, this is a quote I got.
I still have that TV Guide, by the way.
Wow. Oh, we should put that in the show notes too. I have to find it. I'll find a picture of it. If I don't have it, send it to me. I'll let you know. I can't remember where there was an interviewer said the face that critics are saying is more expressive than any human actors, was a quote said about Higgins. A viewer who watched the Benji movie said, dog movie? Oh, That's not a dog movie. That dog has emotions. That dog is fantastic. So when Higgins died on November 11th, in 1975, he was just shy of his 18th birthday. And his body was cremated, and Frank Inn wanted him to be buried with him, but he wasn't. Anyway, yeah, his daughter has the ashes, I think. But Higgins was only in 1 or 2 Benji movies, but there are many more. And Benji was played, or after Higgins died, Benji was played by Higgins's daughter, who was named Benjean. She went on to do even more.
Yeah, I loved all the Benji movies, but definitely.
And you still have that copy?
My favorite. I do. I saved all that. I had saved all that stuff. I even have Benji in. Let me see if I can. Well, your podcast people can't see, but you see right there, behind me. That's all Benji.
Hang on, you guys. Dawn is leaning over to show me a shelving behind her. It's a white shelving, and most of the stuff on it is black and white. There is a framed picture over her right shoulder. It's black and white photos of Benji.
It is, and they're originals from that.
Oh my gosh, Dawn! What else do you have there? Okay, she's bringing it up to the camera. You'll have to, if you don't mind, maybe you could take a picture of it for us. Wow. So
but look how cute he is.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I see here, after I have studied him a little bit, he's doing, one of his tricks is a yawn, and he could shake his head. He could sneeze on command. So one of those stills looked like a yawn that he was doing. He's covering his eyes in another one. So Benji has meant everything to you, or quite a bit to you, for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, he's my inspiration when I think about trying to bring out emotions from dogs, because when you go on set, like to do a movie or even, sometimes just a video shoot, they want the dog to be sleeping, or, I've had where they really want the dog to look sad, and then they want him to look happy again. So you really need to know as a trainer how to bring those emotions out in your animal, right?
If you want to train the next Benji, you'd be smart to do it on a climb table. That's climb with a K, a training pedestal from Blue 9. And right now, This Animal Life has a fantastic offer. You can get $20 off plus free shipping by adding promo code ANIMAL20. That's promo code ANIMAL20 for $20 off at thisanimallife.com. The climb table gives a dog a place they learn as their very own. Many training methods used by professionals often involve a dog training platform or a kind of pause place table. The problem with most platforms is they tend to be heavy and have a number of parts and require assembly as well as repeated maintenance, like painting. The climb features a molded one-piece top with a fully washable surface, strong enough to hold any size dog, and it weighs less than 14 pounds. The units interlock to form whatever platform size is needed. Climb table is fully self-contained. That's part of what makes it really portable. And even when they're taken apart and the legs are stored inside, they still stack. So you can store a whole bunch of them in a closet, in a training space, or in the back of your vehicle. Now you can go to our website, thisanimallife.com, to get your very own climb. You can even add accessories or get a whole training kit. You can add another climb table in any of their fun and classy colors. I think the limited edition lime green is still available for a limited time only, of course. So get $20 off plus free shipping by adding promo code ANIMAL20. That's promo code ANIMAL20 for $20 off at thisanimallife.com. All right. Now, are you saying that you need to help the dog actually feel those feelings or appear to?
So you have to sometimes be good at making noises, right? So if I want a dog to look very concerned, I can go, and that's the hurt puppy sound. And then a dog will look like, oh, are you okay? So it's a concerned look.
Nice.
If I, my little dog Buzz, so if I go, he looks startled, like he just has this very strange look on his face when I make that noise.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't care for it.
Uh-huh.
If I go, "Sss," my dogs will growl and look like they're going to show their teeth.
Really?
So yeah,
You trained that.
yeah, it's just a trick.
The others are reactions, but
So my dogs can sneeze on command. That's one of the first things I teach my dogs. But yes, you need to be able to bring out emotions in your dog. And the thing that really inspired me about watching the Benji movie, and it's if you go back and you watch, you can't tell that dog was being told what to do. You can't tell the eye line of where the
mm,
trainer was at to tell him. Because most of the times
mm-hmm.
in a movie, you can kind of see the dog is looking over the actor's head at their trainer.
Yes.
You could not, I mean, I've picked that movie apart. You cannot tell where Frank was at. That dog was just such a natural actor. Higgins was magical. You just get those one in a million, a billion dogs, and it's magic when you have a dog like that. It's the same thing with my little dog, Nikki, that has passed away. She was just an incredible little actress. And so you do get those dogs. And, a collie is also a different type of a dog than a mutt, right? So I think that also
Okay.
that goes along with it. Their eyes are different, the emotion, the way that they could convey emotion. Benji's eyes were, it was just perfect. That's all I can tell you. He was perfect.
Now, last week's episode was about the Genius Dog Challenge. There's a group of scientists in Hungary who are studying word acquisition in dogs, like the Irene Pepperberg thing, except this is just noun acquisition, whereas Pepperberg went from nouns, labels, called what do you name things, to categories and so on. So far, this is just names for toys, like what Chaser. But what they were looking for is identifying innate talent, or what they call genius. There are very few dogs that actually have the ability to acquire a great deal of nouns in their vocabulary. Do you think that there are some dogs that just have this innate ability to interact in a way that are just so biddable and maybe so subtle or expressive? Is it something they're born with? Is that what you're
Well,
thinking?
I always tell my trainers who get to the point where they say to me, "Oh my God, my dog was so good. I was so proud of the dog." And I was like, "The dog was good because you did that, right? The dog is only
Okay.
as good as the trainer, if that makes sense." So it's
Uh-huh.
really a partnership, which is why I think that dogs should be paid residuals, because we are the ones that are creating that emotion. We're directing the animal, but we are treated like a lamp on set. We are the props department. We do not get
Oh, you're
residuals
kidding
like
me.
the actors who every time that Pepsi commercial or, for instance, airs, that actor gets paid. We get paid one time. And so I don't agree with that.
Mm,
And I hope that at some point I can help to change that. So.
that sounds like a good fight to
Yeah,
fight.
well, I think it's just I've had conversations with other agents, and they're like, "Well, who would we pay? The person we rented the dog from? If it was a puppy, what if it got sold
Oh,
to someone else?" And all those things I think can be worked out. But that's my feeling on it. But yes, I think some dogs you can there are certain breeds I think that are just more biddable and more, we also relate to the way an animal looks. So, if there's
absolutely.
let's just say you are afraid of Dobermans, you're not going to get the warm, fuzzy feel of casting, say, a Doberman as a child's dog that you might get if you had a little cute little mutt, or Jack Russell mix. It's a completely different thing that you're trying to convey on film. So,
Right. Do you think the eyebrows have something to do with
I
it?
think eyelashes have things to do with it, the color of the eye, the shapes of the eyes. We want things that look like something that we could go to the toy store and pick up and give to a child who's sick in the hospital and say, "Here you go, honey." And so those types of dogs that are cute and adorable like that, I don't. That's what gets picked for kids' movies.
Okay. That particular kind of
Yeah,
movie.
dogs get
Yes.
typecast.
Well, And you were typecast as a bottle
I
blonde.
was typecast. Yes. Well, it's funny, as a dog trainer, I would go out, and over the years, I remember one of my training clients, they said, "You look like militant Barbie."
Oh my God. I'm sorry, John. That's
Yeah.
perfect. Are there dogs that you've worked with, either they're your own dog or a dog that you were the agent for, that had the right stuff and we had like ticked all the boxes,
Yeah,
had the looks, had the charm?
yeah, I've been very lucky to work with many dogs. And I let's go back a little bit in the conversation where you said that Franken said that all of the animals lived in his home with him. Well,
Yeah. Mhm.
that was not typical back in the day. Typically,
Oh,
what they would do is they would have like a big boarding kennel, a big barn, those kind of, they would house the animals, the dogs, the cats outside in runs, like boarding kennel runs. And so I actually, when I got started in the business with my little Jack Russells, I was kind of helping somebody at their farm type situation that did the animal actors agency type of thing. And I did not agree with keeping the animals like that in a boarding kennel. And I voiced my concern for the animals. And, anyways, I was complaining to a man named Captain Haggerty, who happened to be very good friends with Frank Inn. They went way, way back. And Captain Haggerty, if you Google
okay.
him, he did tons of movies, David Letterman many times, wonderful man. And I was complaining to him, and he said, "Dawn, just start your own agency." And I was like, "Oh, okay, sir, I'm going to do that." So that's how my agency got started, because I didn't like the old way of doing it. I think animals need to live in the house, and dogs, not in a
Mhm.
doghouse in a kennel run.
Now, why is that? Or is there an example of what's lost if they're out in the
Well,
kennel?
there's a lot of things that are lost. Number one, you're treating a dog like livestock, right? it's I
Yeah.
don't agree with that. Um, and you basically, those dogs that are in kennels, when you take them out, if you were to go to be around other dogs, there could be a dog fight because they're no longer friendly towards other dogs, and they're very frustrated with their life. And that's going to show. They're going to be very high strung a lot of times on set. Um, anyways, so
So they're not well socialized,
they're not well socialized. No,
and they're frustrated because they're social
very, yes,
creatures.
dogs are social, and that was the point that I had made
They're
of
deprived.
when I was trying to argue the point of we should build a playground, was my idea, for the dogs, and fence it in, and then while you're cleaning the runs, put the dogs that can be around other dogs and be friends, let them go and play, let them run off some of this energy. They may not work for another 2 months. Um, and
Oh my gosh,
the
yes.
person who I expressed that to said, "That's too much trouble."
Oh,
Yeah, they again, there's an old school way of doing things, and people just want to stick to that, and I just chose not to be associated with that anymore. So I use professional trainers and pet owners who spend a lot of times with their animals, and they go to competitions, and they do really fun things with them, and it's their baby.
yeah. And they usually don't have 50 dogs.
No, I mean, some of my trainers might have 14, 15 dogs, but they perform.
Okay.
They all do performance, and for me, even if I had 15 dogs, that's not a lot, especially if it's just a few chihuahuas. I mean, chihuahuas, it takes like 6 of those even to make a
They're
dog, okay?
now that attitude where they just are in their own isolated kennel run until we need them, that you can kind of see where the you're just a lamp on the set
Yes,
comes from.
exactly. Um, so anyhow, the dogs that I use these days are really, they're very well trained, and the people who go and do this work, because sometimes I'm on set, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes one of my kind of head trainers is handling things. Sometimes there's not. but I
Mhm.
really look for people who really love their animals. They put a high level of training on it, and they think, oh, this could be fun to go and show off some of that dog skills. And I really enjoy almost, I guess, being able to immortalize a dog. And I only say that because when
Yes.
I did the TV show Dogs 101 many years ago, and that was really one of my first things where I was really a wrangler and I was a coordinator. It was one of my very first big projects.
No, but let's stop right here just real quick. What is a wrangler?
A wrangler is someone who is making sure it's like kind of like a coordinator. We're making sure that everything goes smoothly for an animal. Yeah, we're called animal wranglers. So we'll
Okay.
bring, a whole bunch of ducks to set or dogs and
Okay, so it's an actual job like best boy
yes.
or
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because there's also a difference between an animal trainer and an animal wrangler, right? The trainer is the one telling the animal what to do. The wrangler, we're not really telling ducks what to do. We are wrangling ducks, kind of like cats. We're wrangling cats because you're certainly not telling them what to do. Right. So, yeah, so that was one of my very first big gigs that I had to coordinate and wrangle. And I would go to pet expos, years later after that, because I would hold auditions at Super Pet Expo in New Jersey, is one of them up in Edison. And the people would come up to me who were on my show, and they would come up and hug me and say, Dawn, thank you again for having us do Dogs 101. I still have the card that you sent because I would send everybody a card with the picture of their
oh,
dog on it and some photos of the shoot inside and say, thank you for coming to do my show. And it's going to air this fall on Animal Planet, and they would hug me and tell me how much that meant to them because their dog is now passed away. And the card I sent them is sitting next to the dog's
mm,
urn. But anytime they want, they can go online to Animal Planet and see their dog, or their cat. So I loved being able to do that for people.
wow.
So,
Yes, that's powerful. That's very touching. I think I like that about the podcast because I'm a writer and I would interview people for profiles or interview people for articles and I would record them. I've been doing this for 30 years off and on, freelance. And when you write the article, so little of the conversation and ever ends up appearing in the article. And I love doing the articles because I made this bond with the people that I talk to, just in the interaction that goes into making arrangements or following them. Like I went on set. I didn't know I was going to do a podcast at the time, but I
yes.
went with you and Mel when Mel's Godric was in a commercial and spent the day watching all the things that you do, and it was really fun. But I like making that connection and making people look good, like sharing with other people the cool things that I find out about this person, like how charming they are or how compelling their story is, and when I realized that when podcasts came out and I realized that, oh, the audio I've been creating and listening to over and over again so that I can put together an article, here's a way to share that so that other people get to enjoy the people I'm interviewing as much as
Yes,
I
and
did.
I get that, and you do have that you do build a connection. I mean, the people who did my shows, many years ago, I'm still Facebook friends with them. They still reach out to
Mm-hmm.
me, and we have that connection, and it does, like I said, immortalize their pet. In a sense, we will always have
Yes.
that for them. So.
But you also develop a friendship with the animal.
Yes, and I love highlighting people's, just the incredible relationship that they have with their animal. You can see that, when they go on set and they're like telling their animal, doing 5, 6 things in a row, and you could just see that connection. Like I just love that. I think dogs and are just amazing creatures, and I do work with cats, right? But it's a little
Okay.
bit, cats are a little bit more difficult. They don't always appreciate all of the, I guess, love and attention and affection,
Sure.
that the dogs do. So,
But people do train their cats. I'm always telling people
I say,
because
please train them.
yes,
Please. I need cat train.
I'm so glad you're saying that. Thank you. I can't tell you how many people send me a little note because I'm a trick dog trainer, that they taught their cat, or my cat's really smart, or I taught my cat this, and then I will send them a book on clicker training cats. It's a Karen Pryor book, and a clicker. And I was like, do more. And they almost never do. I just found somebody who's taught 4 or 5 tricks to their cat, and I'm trying to encourage her to do
Well,
more.
I've been so on my video podcast last year, I had Maeve come on, and it was the surfer cat. This cat surfs, and
Oh my gosh.
they make harnesses for cats. His name's Maverick, but we call him Maeve. So Maverick, the surfer cat. So these people who own him, they walk him on a leash, and they actually make harnesses. So I really always encourage people to take their cat out and learn how to harness train it, because when I interview cats, like the last time I interviewed cats, I have them come to, if you've heard of the Aloft hotels.
Yes.
You ever been to one of those? Okay.
Yes.
They treat you like a rock star. I love those hotels. So they have a very cool lounge area, and I can grab a drink while I'm there to interview somebody at the bar because it's right there. And so I have people bring their cats, and we put them out on the couches and on the tables, and I pretend like, hey, if this was a shoot, how would this cat do? And that really gives me a good sense of if this is a cat I think that I can hire. Anyways, please get out, harness train them, and take them everywhere.
And treat them like rock stars at the Aloft Hotel.
Yes. It's such a cool place.
Oh man. What are any of your animals acting right now?
You mean my personal animals?
Your personal animals, yeah.
Well, with COVID, I am vaccinated, but I have not been to set since last December. My little dog Buzz did a video promoting a new, I guess, kind of like you brush your dog and it dries the dog at the same time, let's say. It's a brand new product that's coming out. So we did a YouTube video. But that was the only time that I have been to set since this pandemic started. And, we'll see what life brings. But, I'm a little bit nervous about getting COVID.
Yes.
So, anyway, but now that we have the vaccine, and now that we have all this testing, and again, if it was an outdoor shoot, yeah. But no, I don't have anything on the books for my little dogs because I live in Florida, and literally not much goes on here in Florida. The shoots that I have had, like the one that you came and met up with me with Mel and Godric, that was in Clearwater. I've done one other shoot there with goats at that. Yeah, it was goat yoga for Publix. I love goats too, but they poop a lot. They're very messy. Oh my God, nonstop on set, nonstop. But they're adorable. So yeah, we filmed a Publix commercial where they wanted the girl to lay down and do goat yoga, and then I had a lady who that's what she does for a living is goat yoga. So she brought her goats, like she got on all fours and put her leg up, and then the goat had to jump up on her back. But while we're holding the goats on leashes, they're just nonstop pooping.
Okay, so they're not pooping on the yoga people.
Well, they didn't for that second, thank God, Yeah. They're adorable.
Oh, it sounds like a lot of fun.
And the other shoots that I've had were for Purina and Chewy's over in Hollywood, Miami area. But that was a couple of years ago.
Okay. So the chance that I had to go hang out with you and Mel, that was just a rare and wonderful thing. I didn't even know.
Yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed that. And I do hope to, do more things here in Florida. But at this point, I work all over the country. Last week, I had a job in Denver, had another one in New York City.
Now, are you traveling to these locations or are you just zooming in?
No, that's what I just said. So I have shoots all over the country, but my trainers just go and do the shoots.
Okay.
I don't actually go there myself.
Yeah.
I have a shoot going on in Omaha just later this month, which I've never had a job in Omaha. So whatever.
Yeah.
We're making it happen.
Okay. Well, do you have any tips for people who might be looking to get into this business? Say, how to find the right dog or parrot or cat? What do you look for when you're just starting out with a new animal?
Okay. Well, I would just say, realize I don't know if people go looking for animals to be able to do this business, but if you say to yourself, "Oh, I have these two dogs or a cat," and um, the big thing is, make sure that you've done some training in public with them,
Okay.
right? Because I get people all day long. They're like, "Look how cute my puppy is." For instance, people email me or text me with pictures of their 4-month-old puppy. It doesn't matter. It
Yeah.
really doesn't matter how cute that puppy is. Um, if I get a call for a puppy, I might reach out to you. But the puppies don't really have to do anything because they're puppies.
Yeah.
Okay. So if it's not a puppy and you really want to do this business, also be realistic about the look of your animal, right? So if you contact me and you have a black German Shepherd and you're like, "Oh, I really want to be, I'm a dog trainer. I love my black German Shepherd and I really want to get some work for it." It's probably not going to happen, to be honest with you, because it's a black dog and black dogs just don't photograph very well.
No, they don't.
No.
No.
So if you contact me and you have a golden retriever, that's the number one working dog. So there might be a possibility, depending on where you live, for that dog. So, if you don't have the right dog for this business, then just think about that the next time you go to adopt a puppy or buy a puppy from a breeder. Think about what you're getting, and feel free to reach out to me and be like, "Dawn, so what do you think about this breed versus that breed?" Because I'll give you my honest opinion as far as which one I think is going to work.
Do breeds trend?
Absolutely. Frenchies are super hot. They've been hot for at least 5 years now. So that's another one.
Still going strong on the Frenchie?
Yeah,
Frenchie front.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And, years ago, it was all about Jack Russells. 10 years ago, Jack Russells were very, very big. And I'd love Jack Russells, the little devils. But, I don't think people should rush out to go get a Jack Russell just because they're cute. Especially if you like to go to dog parks and you like to be very social with all your little doggy friends. That is not the breed for you. You might want to get a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel.
Yeah, they're scrappy. The Jack Russells are. They're little chip on the shoulder.
I love them so much. Yes.
Yeah,
that's my breed. But again, I'm a dog trainer and I don't go to dog parks because dog parks are not a very safe place for dogs. So
no, you don't think so?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So
we don't go to dog parks either.
I mean, once in a while I go, but I'm very protective of my little guys when I do go. And I'm always I'm one of those people where it's hard for me to go to a dog park and just relax without giving out free dog training advice or maybe getting upset with somebody because their little dog, just went after another dog and, they're letting dogs run the fences. So it's not always a very relaxing place
it doesn't
for a dog trainer to be.
No, because you're trying to wrangle the people, the strangers in the dog park.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And you're working.
It definitely
feels like you're working. Work. Yeah. No, you can't go to dog.
I feel like I'm one of those people, like, I want to keep everybody safe. You know what I mean? So when the owners are talking on their phone, they're not paying attention to their dogs. And then a new dog is about to come in. I try to be like, "Hey, you might want to get your dog away from the gate," because most fights are going to happen right at the gate. But most dog owners don't have enough control over their dogs to tell them to come and sit at their side while that dog enters dog park, which is what you should do. That's proper etiquette. Get your dog away from there. And then I always tell people, let the new dog come in and see the other dogs, because it may not go well. And at least your dog's not involved in a quick little dog fight if your dog is next to you. So
this is not the era of etiquette.
I know this is not where you thought this conversation is going to go. We can talk about dog parks all day.
No, and we should talk about etiquette. It's a huge problem in the culture at large, I think. And now I sound like an old lady, people just don't have manners like they used to, but it's also a really big deal when it comes to dogs, and it's all about their safety and people's safety around them. And I imagine that's a huge challenge on a set which a set has, I remember from being there with Mel and Godric, there was a lot of moving parts, a lot of people doing a lot of things, and cables, and in the scenes, actually both scenes had the general public also in the vicinity. And sometimes, a lot of times, the dog is off leash.
Yes. Yep. So yeah, it's definitely putting those safety things in when you're, when I'm kind of like talking to the producer, like I had a call the other day. They wanted they actually wanted a cat to run outside the front door of a house, like, and then they want the child to bring the cat back into the house. And I said, I don't really think that's a very good thing for a cat to do, because if you let a cat out the front door of a strange home that you're filming in, it's probably going to run off. So I won't do that unless we put the cat on a harness with a piece of fish line to it, so that it actually can't do that. And they said, well, do you think a dog would be better at this? I said, yes, I really do think a dog would be better at that. And they said, well, you wouldn't have to build anything out in front of the house so the dog wouldn't run away. I said, no, because it's a trained dog, and I would only send a dog that was off leash trained to be able to accomplish that for you. And there's something called an animal safety rep, and these people are, I had one on my show last year from Jamie came on, and we talked about all that stuff. But sometimes those people are not there on the set. So ultimately it's your responsibility to keep your animals safe.
It's your responsibility too, or you take that very seriously.
Well, I try to find out from the production exactly what's going on. I make them aware of what the animal's limitations and maybe some things that we should put in place if needed. And then I always just tell my trainers, look, if they say, hey, do you think that we can do this? And it wasn't in the script. If you think that it's safe, or you say, hey, I need to, put a barrier here before we do that. We always try to accommodate the productions. But sometimes, we have to say, no, we're not going to do that, and, I've had to, and sometimes, the productions get a little annoyed because they're on a time schedule. For instance, I borrowed a hamster from one of my dog training clients years ago, and we were filming in a 3-story Victorian home with a couple of children, and we're on the top floor, and they wanted the child to hold the little hamster in its hands and come down the hallway.
I have a bad feeling right now, Dawn.
Well, I didn't let anything happen, but they wanted the child to walk down the hallway, and the mother would open the door at the end of the hallway, and the child would thrust the hamster in her face. And, little hamsters, their little eyeballs kind of pop out a little bit. So first I had to show the child, like, don't squeeze the hamster too much. But the other concern was I made them put up like a barrier all along that banister with paper, like it was 4-foot high paper. And they had to tape up the whole banister before I would allow that to even be filmed, which again, it took a half hour of their time. But I wasn't going to have that poor little hamster fall out of that child's hands and then fall to its death. I mean, that would just be horrifying. So,
it would traumatize the child. Although the hamster would probably bounce.
I don't know. It was 3 stories. It was
you can't take that chance anyway.
I would never.
No, that would be irresponsible.
But, sometimes it's just wrangling animals, and sometimes it's really bringing out emotion in animals. So it's always never the same day on set,
I love that.
It's fun. And some tricks, you're asking about tips and tricks, I think is what you had asked about for training. Well, we all know the basics that dogs need to do, but if you really want to set yourself apart, I just had a dog on Friday for a big company I won't mention, film a scene at a park where the dog is being walked on a leash, and then now this is a female dog, and she had to hike her leg like she was peeing on the tree.
Okay, very doable.
Teach that trick, because that's something that most dogs can't do. So when I'm looking for a dog, this dog actually came from Maryland up to New York to do it. So if I would have had a dog in the New York area that was really good at it, I could have submitted. So that trick takes a long time. It can take a lot of patience. it can take a lot of patience. Absolutely. And you have to teach the dog, some dogs are left and right legged, you know what I mean? So, and then, you want to teach the dog to go fake pee on a person, fake pee on a pocketbook.
Right. You got to generalize the
Numerous
behavior.
different, you have to generalize the behavior. Yes. And then my other favorite trick, if anybody listening wants to go and Google this on YouTube, it was called the 2012 Humpy Awards. And it was a fake leg humping competition.
Wow.
Yes. And not trying to brag, but I will tell you that I'm probably the only animal talent agent who could have pulled this off for this guy, because most people don't have dogs that will hump legs, and all 4 of my girl dogs humped legs. So yeah, we were able to pull that off. So I would tell you, teach your dog, if they already naturally kind of want to hump a stuffed animal, or you catch them trying to, do it on your leg, just put it on command. Yep. That's all. Don't squash that. But that's right. Don't squash that behavior.
Don't shame them. It's natural.
Yeah. And then have them do it on different people, like out in public. Cause that's the thing.
Hilarious.
Well, I had some dog training clients, a little French bulldog back then. And I had gone out because the dog was driving me crazy for that and a couple other problems. And I said, hey, could we not try to get rid of that behavior? I might actually need it. And oh my God, I swear to God, it was like a week later. I called him up. I'm like, hey, I kind of need another leg hump here. And so they brought the dog to do the shoot. There was a couple of dogs who said, oh yeah, my dog will do it. And again, that was a new client. I thought it might be able to do it. None of the dogs did it except for my dog.
How about that?
All of my dogs did it, because my dogs would do it anywhere. They were just it was a command.
Anywhere to anyone.
So anytime. Yep.
Okay. So here I am saying our culture lacks manners. And now we're encouraging you to teach your dog to hump anyone, anywhere, anytime.
I mean, they only have to hump for a couple of seconds. It's not like they have to, go the whole way or anything.
We don't want to sexually abuse. You know what?
Just for a few seconds, but
always get consent.
Yes, you should get consent of the people that you let them go hump. Well, it's funny because they flew my dogs out to what was that? Minneapolis. I took Nikki and I took Hope. Nikki was the backup dog, and Hope was a very strong humper. So when I got out there, it was a commercial for a casino, and it was a play on Westminster. So they had, this other trainer bring all of these dogs, and, the judge is walking down looking at it. I actually put a link to it on my YouTube channel. It's up there. But the judge is walking down looking at each dog like it's in the dog show. And then it gets to the last dog, and here's Hope. She's just going to town on this guy's, leg. And this thing was, you have a better chance of getting lucky here at Treasure Island Casino.
Nice.
But the other person who had brought the local dogs, Hope got tired. I mean, because Hope was a very strong humper, and this guy's foot was really big and it was really wide, much bigger than my foot. My foot fit better for her, and so Hope got a little bit tired, so we had to take a little bit of break. And this other trainer came into the back room. She's like, we really need to keep this going, and we really want to wrap this up. Did you mind if I just mess with your dog a little bit and see if I can get her to do it? I said, knock yourself out. So the trainer goes,
what is she, a fluffer?
Well, she thought my dog would hump her leg for treats. So because she's a trick dog, treats.
Sure.
Everybody's all about treats. So she goes and she gets the treats, and Hope gets up onto her leg. Hope would not do it. And so after maybe 10 minutes of trying, she's like, okay, well, I guess let's just let her take a break. I said, yeah. I said, my dog does it. Not for treats. I said, yes, it's a trick. I said, my dog does it because it feels good. I mean, she just needs a little recoup time here, So anyhow,
she needs her turnaround time.
Yeah. But anyways, that was really fun. So we always have a need for those types of
for
unusual skills.
Pissers and humpers.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. My trainer who went to set on Friday with the fake pee job, when she got to set, if they always do this. So do you think the dog can fake poop? Yeah, yeah, yes. They wanted to know. I
Oh,
said, and I sent her a text back. I said, well, next they're going to want to know if the dog can scooch on the ground and scratch its ass on the, on the grass. And she was laughing about that. I mean, we will always try, but no, the dog, that's a very tough one to get a dog into a position to fix.
the fake poop position.
But you remember the Stanley Steamer dog? How it like scooched on the floor? Do you remember that one?
No.
Great. So yeah, so teaching your dog to scooch is a really good trick too. So and another one is fleas, teaching your dog to scratch.
Higgins
Yeah.
could do that.
Oh, Higgins could do anything. One of my most impressive tricks that he taught Higgins was to actually pull a rope up a basket and put his paw on it.
Yes.
And then that was incredible. That's a great trick.
Yes. One of the videos I've chosen for the show notes shows that.
Okay.
It's a giant bone that he pulls. It's an interview with him in front of a live audience outside, and he runs them through some paces. And it's great because you were saying that you had the one dog that you could give commands in a conversational tone. They're just like sprinkled in to your natural talking. He's speaking to Higgins in this way. And he says, why don't you go hop up? And it was a double level thing. And Higgins goes and it's a send too. I mean, it's something you have to work on all these things to get distance in any of this, which we haven't talked about, but the handler has to be able to work at a good distance. And he's just, Franken is just sitting in a chair, and the double decker thing that Higgins has to climb was off to the side. And he just runs over there, no treats, nothing, hops up. And then there's a rope waiting for him and this giant bone. And he tells him, pull, hold it with your paw, pull, hold it with your paw until the whole thing has been pulled all the way up. And then he says, drop it and come get your treat.
Yep.
It's quite something.
Amazing.
Yes.
And, that's the thing. Dogs do need to work from a distance, and all this year, I mean, the trainers cannot be in the shot. The owner can't be in the shot. So everything is done from usually like 10 feet away. And that's also, in my opinion, what separates the professionals from the amateurs, okay. Right? When you're teaching a trick to a dog, it's okay to really be like, oh my God, that was amazing, right? And give it a treat, every single time. When that dog is a trained dog, and I want to send trained dogs to set, a dog should be able to do 10 things in a row. Yes. Without needing a treat, without needing oh my God, that was great. Because you want a dog with a really good work ethic. And that's what makes some dogs really special. And again, I can just tell you the difference between my two Jack Russells, Miss Hope and Nikki. So Nikki, each dog is going to be unique in their own way. So Miss Hope, for example, she was a much more high drive hunting type of a Jack Russell. And Hope, I could walk into the local bank, and while I'm doing a check, I could say, Hope, sniff it out. And she would literally start searching the whole bank for drugs. I would not have to encourage her. I would just say, Hope, sniff it out. And the whole time she is working.
Wow.
Right. Now, Nikki, who did not have that type of instinct in her and hunting drive to Nikki, that was not her thing. Right. So you have to really pick what your dog is good at too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyhow, that was a big difference between my girls.
Good to have a string of dogs, because they will have preferences, things that they're naturally talented or naturally more interested in than other dogs.
Absolutely. Well, Hope was like my little mini Malinois. Like, she loved bite work. Police officers could fake shoot her. If I, well, I'll tell you one thing that was also fun. Certain breeds have certain characteristics that they just naturally do. And I remember Nikki did a Band-Aid commercial with these little children, and they wanted, the kids were all playing in the sandbox, and they wanted Nikki to go and dig in the sand and throw sand on the children. And so I went and I dug a little spot, and I said, Bonita, there's a mouse right there. And then I covered that spot up and I walked away, and they said, roll camera. And I said, get the mouse. And Nikki went right to that spot and started digging and throwing sand. And the directors and everybody on the set just thought that was amazing. And I was thinking to myself, it's a Jack Russell. I mean, it just wants to get the mouse. They love to dig and try to kill little critters, you know? It
Yes.
wasn't that amazing, but it impressed everybody. So,
Well,
you
it
know,
was impressive that you knew exactly what to do to set her up so that she would perform.
yes. Well, again, I think it's just that bond that you have with your
Yeah.
animal and being able to trust them and communicate with them
Yeah.
exactly, what it is you want. So, yeah. And I'm kind of retired now from training dogs. Once in a while, I'll take on a client, but I've it's been a wonderful career, and I'm really enjoying now. Doing more of the animal talent agency and
Hmm.
sending and growing that and going to set with other people's animals. And I have my two little dogs, Buzz and Pinky, but that's really not my focus anymore, and is using my dogs for everything.
Yeah.
So,
How can people get in touch with you?
well, the easiest thing to do if you're interested in this type of opportunities is to get into my Facebook group. Go to facebook.com/positively famous, follow my page for casting calls, and then check out the group that's attached to that.
Okay, we'll
And
put links in the show notes for all of this.
the main way. And of course, on Instagram, you can find me there. And I'm actually launching. I've been doing a video podcast, and it's actually
Hmm.
going to be a audio podcast, the Positively Famous podcast. So those kind of things. If you're interested in this, just stay connected, and I'm happy to teach people and bring more education to what it is I do. For
Yes,
people, so they have a little bit more information on
you're
this.
an excellent coach.
So thank you. Thank you. Well, that's really what a dog trainer. A lot of people are like, oh, I'd love to work with animals. Uh, you really have to love working with people because it's all
Bingo.
people training, you know.
Yes.
So, but yeah, I'm having a really good time at this point in my career. So,
Yeah, it's clear. It's really fun to hang out with you on a set, and it's really fun to talk to you, Dawn.
that was a really fun day when I met you, and I was so proud of Godric
Oh
and
my
Mel.
gosh, yes.
I mean, he did really well because he'd never done anything like that
No, and he
before.
nailed everything.
Yeah. And Mel hadn't done anything. And I was just so proud of how,
She's a good
how all
trainer.
that turned. She's an amazing trainer.
Yes.
She's a
I remember the
wonderful
one thing
person.
she was worried about, the one time she had any doubt about him that day was when he had to go running toward someone, I think, and there was a lake right behind that person because he's a golden retriever and she'd been doing duck hunting work with him. So
Yes.
remember, she was afraid that he was all carefully groomed. She was afraid that like right away he was going to plunge into the lake, and he didn't because
No.
she had a remote down. She could say down, and he would drop because he
Yes.
was well trained, and he was trained anywhere, any place, because she had taken him out in the world and proofed him on all these situations, and she worked at a distance. Yeah,
Yeah, and she's exactly the kind of person that I'd love to work with.
yeah,
I don't require somebody always have. Sometimes the companies I work with, they require somebody to have previous experience. Some of them don't, but I'd love people giving them their first shot. So if you're interested in getting, your foot in the door with this kind of thing, reach out to me.
I have this feeling there was a lot more to talk about.
Oh gosh, we
I
could talk
know.
for days. I think you and I, Lisa.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
beautiful. He had a funny little face.
So he's a Jack Russell mix.
I had a wire-haired fox terrier was my first dog. So I have
Those are cool dogs.
oh my gosh, that dog was cool. And I taught her to do so many tricks. And we won a trophy in a tricks competition.
Wow.
I know. Yeah, tricks and terriers and I go way back.
So do you know why I have a Maltese?
I wasn't going to comment when I saw that. I'm not judging you, Dawn. You have my respect regardless.
So you remember? So I never knew why I really wanted a little white dog. All right. So go back and watch the Benji movie,
Okay.
right? All of my Jack Russells were white, right?
Yeah.
But I never had like a solid white Fifi dog like this.
I think I know
If
where
you
you're
go
going
back
with this.
Yes, her name was
me.
Tiffany. Benji's girlfriend in the movie was named Tiffany. Look at what I have. Oh my God. See, I've totally lived into it. And I was so impressionable. Huh.
I'm so glad you suggested that we talk about Benji. I hope I did Benji justice in telling the story.
Well,
We'll have to
I
find
was
an
going to
angle.
say on that show when you're talking about the Beverly Hillbillies,
Yeah.
right? I'm kind of like Ellie Mae. Like I have always had like lots of critters, and I'll pull over on the side of the road to pick up more, and bring them home. And I just hope someday I can find another man who loves all that in a woman.
Oh, I'm keeping this. I'm gonna take that clip and I'm gonna move it right up front so that nobody misses it.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for having me on This Animal Life. It's been wonderful to talk.
It's been wonderful to have you. Thank you so much for being here. This is cool. It's really cool.
So much fun.
You're cool. I'll put in the show notes as many links to the books, movies, and television shows Dawn and I mentioned as I possibly can. Thanks as always to Sarah K. Martin for our super charming illustrations. We are so lucky. Thanks to Chip Salerno for this funky tune you're enjoying. Just go to the show notes for all the sources I used to put together the story of Higgins, otherwise known as Benji. If you like this episode, please support us by clicking like, ideally 5 stars, for This Animal Life on your favorite podcast provider. And even better, subscribe and review. Even if you just write one word, it helps us more than you know. Help us thrive in the podcast ecosystem.